I walk through the hydroponics hall, a hover tray floating at my shoulder level. The air in here is extremely refreshing. There is also a tranquil glistening of bright light off the surface of the nutrient-rich water, which trickles past the roots of the ship's crops. It really is a shame I can't spend prolonged periods in here. Well, I could, if I were prepared to visit Dr. Gatto and receive a stern telling off for allowing myself to receive a toxic quantity of oxygen. Best not. I have things to do anyway. I still find it absurd that Death World crops would grow so fast that they actually raise the oxygen to levels toxic to most garden worlders. I can't help but be a little jealous of the Triple M's. They can spend as long as they like in here. They describe it with words like energizing, invigorating, and restorative. I exit the pretty room and begin making my way bowward, along the wide corridor of the ship's neck. I take a moment to glance out of the port side windows and then the starboard. This is an enormous hangar. I never would have tolerated the docking fees to rent this space, preferring to conduct any business from orbit via shuttle. Ludicrous to think that the Terran military are just giving the time in this hangar away. Lieutenant Loper essentially wrote us a carte blanche. The only qualifier was within reason. We might have struggled to find an authority willing to even take surrendered pirates off us in garden water space. The situation never really came up before Terrans crashed onto the scene. If pirates attempted to board you, you either got away, killed them all, or, far more likely, you were all killed by them. The scenario of pirates surrendering just never happened. As a result, no planet's legal system was equipped to handle it. We would likely have been told that there was nothing they could do, as they only had the jurisdiction to enforce laws on their planet, in their local system and on their ships. An out-of-system ship engaging and surrendering pirates in open space was not processable. That might be less the case these days. Terran behaviors have a habit of inveigling themselves into those of other species. In Terran space, we come to tell them we've apprehended pirates and they waive our docking fees, offer us a bounty and finder's fees, and give us a hearty thank you. I still can't work out what it is that rankles me about accepting that bounty. Starting my career, if someone had offered me an enormous heap of money for doing something I'd already done, I would likely have accepted without a second thought. Now, I feel guilty? For what? Doing the right thing and being rewarded? Did I do the right thing, though? I did the thing that I was told was most likely to keep me alive. It just so happened to have a just reward. And shouldn't the right thing be its own reward? Is it right to accept a reward for just doing what anyone should? Ah, there. I noticed it this time. That's a Terran mindworm working its way into my brain. Even my Terran crew are telling me to accept the bounty. Terrans are the ones offering the bounty. There is such a thing as too noble. I chuckled to myself as I climbed the shallow angle stairway to my quarters, taking each stair with 2 to 3 steps. My door opens to reveal the 3 most precious people in the galaxy to me. Quark, asleep in our perch. Victor, sat in the human-adapted chair he's brought in and smiling broadly, and sat on the palm of his hand, chirruping delightedly as she wrestles his gentle index finger, with seemingly all her might. My daughter. I am certain Victor has noticed me enter, but he's not given the slightest indication of it. Victor? Yeah, Cap? He says. Emerald eye is still fixed on the puffball as she rolls around the palm that could crush her like a dandelion mane. I knew he'd noticed. I gesture to the hover tray. What are those? He looks up and frowns in puzzlement. I was not expecting that. They look like toys, Cap, he asks, small and tells. I can see that they're toys, they're not dense, I chitter warily. What are they for? He shrugs. Beats me. They look really good, though. That's the bright plume? And is that a Mobius plushie? You expect me to believe that these toys have nothing to do with you? You know nothing about them? Still shrugging, he answers, Wish I could take credit, Cap, but no. Nothing to do with me or anyone in Triple M, far as I know. Where'd you get them? They were in the shipment of cleaning supplies that just caught up with us. Hamtonio and I were expecting them. They were in one of the crates. Victor stands, keeping his Takak cradling hand as steady as a gimbal, and walks over. One-handed and with no visible effort, he picks up the bright plume miniature that it took both me and Hamtonio to lift onto the tray. He inspects it. The detail's excellent. I almost feel like I could look through the Triple M common room window and see us sitting in there. He puts it down and picks up the plushie that was light enough for me to lift, but too bulky to carry easily. Takak notices. It's gorgeous. I want one, he says admiringly. You have the real thing, I say incredulously. Yeah, but She's at the uni right now. Plus, this one's small. You just had 8 small ones for weeks, and she'll be done weaning and back with you before you know it. He shakes his head, mirthfully. Apparently this is a lesson in the art of cute appreciation that I am not yet ready for. Daq extends her wing claws and talons to the plushie, fixing it with an expression of clear longing. I'm sorry, my child, I would give this to you if it were mine, but it isn't, I say, distressed. She keeps reaching for it as Victor places it down on the hover tray. Clearly distraught, in the way that only one brand new to existence can be, she turns up her head and cries to be fed. My crop heaves, but it is empty. Fuck. Victor, the one she's crying at, strokes her tummy and says, Sorry, baby, if I did what you want me to do, my stomach acid will melt you. I'm up, pal. I'm getting it, said Quark blearily. He hops from our perch and walks to Victor, who hands him to Daq. Thank you, sweet fruit. Mine was empty, I say, apologetically. He waves his wing in a gesture of no problem, his mouth being otherwise occupied. Victor turns away and fixes his eyes on me. His tolerance for crop feeding is apparently not infinite. Cap, he says, clearly attempting to distract himself. If you found him in cleaning supplies, they're probably Glarks. Maybe you should talk to him about them. Or they might be toothlesses. Glark and Bammy are so cute together. You hear me just pop the question? Garden warder as he might be, these toys definitely fit my chief custodial officer's personality. I'll do that, Victor. This evening, I think. Let's send them away before Daq can get upset about the plushie again. I indicate to the hover tray that it is to return to the point where I activated it, and leaves the room. Alright, Victor, we have appointments to keep. Quark, will you be alright on your own? His mouth still at Daq's, he raises a wing claw in a Terran thumbs up. I burst out laughing. That was certainly unanticipated. Alright, we'll be off then. I smile at my life mate and my daughter. I feel a little guilty about abandoning him, but that is what paternity leave is for. Later. Victor enters a wide piazza with a large case, containing the damaged plasma blaze of him and his team, held effortlessly in his right hand, and me perched atop his opposite shoulder, eating some fruit slices on the skewer. How are Mouse's new limiters working out for you, Cap? I smirk. Well, they're engaged, and I'm attempting to crush your shoulder right now. You tell me. A moment's pause. Yeah, feels like someone behind me wants my attention and is trying to get it by squeezing my shoulder. But, they don't want to be too rude. I smirk. Do you want to try with the limiters off? For thoroughness? No, he answers instantly, causing me some amusement. A moment passes. Victor, why am I not allowed in Triple M at the moment? It's hard not to be apprehensive. He smiles. No worries, Cap. We just painted another panel to the mural. Wanted to be a surprise. I think this one will give you some pride. That does not assuage my apprehension. What could they possibly have to muralize? Us going to the university, getting drinks? Victor confronting the soldiers off the boarding ramp? If the latter, then there would surely be no reason for me to be barred. As we cross the piazza, we hear the strumming of a musician's instrument, followed by mournful words. Mournful words that I do not understand. Is she not wearing a translator? I looked to the woman, sat by a fountain with an acoustic guitar. She definitely has a translator equipped at her temple. By the father, Victor's musical taste runs so highly to the intense that I had almost forgotten the seemingly infinite range of music that Terrans are capable of producing. Like with all things Terran, the variety of their music is such as to equal the rest of the non-Terran galaxy combined. Though I don't understand a word of it, the pain and longing pierces my hearts. Why can't I understand her? I ask Victor, only noticing at that point that he's also stopped to listen. She probably can't speak Japanese, just learned the song by rote. I mean, I assume she knows well enough that she's not declaring war or shouting out abuse, but the words themselves. Humans can learn an entire... I stop myself. Of course they can. This is nothing to be surprised by. It's a really sad song. I used to listen to it when I felt lonely, Victor states simply. You understand it? I ask. Yeah. Miyazaki gave me Japanese lessons while I was at uni. Her dad was Japanese. Don't know how many people there are as they can say they've learned Japanese lessons from the Gian Blitz Miyazaki. I think about asking him to translate it for me, but I decide instead to simply ask, what is the song called, Victor? Without looking away from the musician, he answers, it's called Kimi Datara, Cap. Translates to, If It Were You. We watch the musician play the rest of the song in silence. Her playing is entirely enrapturing. As neither she nor I speak Japanese, it is impossible to say whether she falters over the pronunciation of word order, but if she does, she certainly manages to avoid giving any indication of it. When she is done with the song, Victor takes out his holopad to flick a small digital donation to hers. He explains that, while she will almost certainly receive a salary from the local government, for her publicly playing, the custom is left over from a time when buskers relied on tips to live. If you stop to listen and enjoy it, tradition dictates that you donate. I think for a moment before I unclip my holopad and replicate this Terran custom before Victor walks on. The busker begins playing another sad song in yet another language that she apparently does not speak. This one is called Sozumoru Vosranap, and is also known as the Hungarian suicide song according to Victor. I truly hope that busker is alright. Here we are, declares Victor, gesturing upward to the building Zanzibar Papaya's most reputable purveyor of firearms, according to Lopa. I look up at the enormous building. The fact that there could possibly be a private gunsmith this size, even on a planet with 6.5 billion inhabitants, boggles my mind. Victor walks inside. Later. You sure I can't talk you around? The manufacturer says that is almost as good as an analog for resistance to interference, says the personable associate. Victor smiles and shakes his head. You taught me around on the translator interface targeting. You are right. I was being paranoid and it was making me throw the baby out with the bathwater, but anything that might electronically stop a gun from going click and boom when I needed to is non-negotiable. My polar potential deputies are all going to receive thorough firearms training from me, which I am fully licensed to give them, so whitelisting ain't necessary, and the firearms themselves are going to be stored in my quarters and the quarters of my subordinates, so there ain't a need to worry about them being nicked and turned against us. Just the ones that go click and boom, please. Alright, sir, you want to try out your selections on our range? Queries the clerk. Victor nods. Yeah, I would. He turns to me. You want to stay here, Cap? You don't need to come. I think for a moment before answering. I'll come. I want to see what I'm spending the ship's budget on. Before closing the two of my eyes that are still natural, thus having a need for eyelids to effect a Terran wink. Victor laughs. Alright, Cap. Good to know what you're paying for. The clerk shows us through to a long room, most of which is segregated from us by a barrier, with gaps at roughly Terran waist to head height, with wide margin of error, seemingly to account for the stunning variety present in humans themselves, let alone other Terran species. The clerk gives Victor a pair of earmuffs and me a soundproof field generator. He apologetically explains that they don't have any headsets that would fit me, that the noise of the firearms being fired repeatedly can be damaging even to the hearing of Terrans, and that Victor is being given earmuffs, which only dampen rather than blocking the sound, intentionally. Sound is apparently one data stream that will allow my CSS to assess these guns for quality. I nod and activate the latest addition to the array of welfare devices on the sash strung across my chest. Victor starts with a selection of shotguns he's picked out for himself. He picks up the first, levels it at his shoulder, and fires over the countertop. The explosion is silent to me, but I feel the vibration from my feet. The extent to which the recoil forces Victor's solid frame to account for it is frightening. Handheld firearms are an invention nearly exclusive to Terrans. Every other species used explosively propelled weaponry for cannons and other static placement weapons, if at all. Experiments with handheld explosively propelled weapons invariably met with the answer that they were non-viable. To have enough kick to do damage to what you aim at, they need to have enough of the recoil to shatter the bones of a garden welder. Handheld ranged weaponry needed to wait until we had developed kinetic pulse weaponry and laser weaponry, which Victor describes being shot by as like being punched, and like having a cigarette put out of me respectfully. Terrans express general disappointment that it's the post-contact space age and the most advanced weaponry is still boomsticks. I'm not exactly sure why. Terrans do have a tendency to never consider anything finished. All their technology is just a placeholder until something better comes along. You've got a good CSS, Captain. He knows his stuff and clearly cares about keeping your ship safe. Not just because that's where the woman who cuts his checks comes from, comes the voice of the gunsmith, causing me to start. He stepped inside my foot without me noticing. I recover from being startled and consider his words. Yes, I'm extremely proud of him. He's my daughter's godfather, you know. The man is clearly surprised. I know. I didn't even know what a godparent was until earlier this cycle. Your species' customs are extremely viral, I voice. He laughs. I could say the same for garden welders. It's getting rarer and rarer that people come in looking for anything other than firearms choked up with safety features. Pre-contact, we had the ability to make guns that could lock out unauthorized users, but we'd all sort of agree that such features were gimmicky and too prone to being subverted. We just trusted in the licensing and training of users to keep people safe from accidents. Historically, there were countries where you didn't need any training at all to buy a firearm, and they would accept home defense as a valid reason you needed one. I'm glad we eventually came to our senses about that sort of thing. I laugh. Yes, there was a brief discussion of the possibility of using a nanoforce to remove the safety features in our existing supply of firearms. Victor utterly shut that down, citing that subverting a civilian nanoforce to be capable of making or modifying weaponry was a crime. Your species can be sticklers sometimes. He chortles. We watch as Victor expertly fires off each of the guns he has picked out. I don't think he misses a single shot, even without the aiming reticule being projected into his vision by his optical lobe. As he tests, he sorts them into two piles, a large pile which I infer to be the rejects, and a small pile which I infer to be those accepted. Victor was quite disappointed by his subordinate's declaration that they didn't wish to be the boyfriends waiting for their girlfriend to be done shoe shopping, and that they would trust him to pick out the best firearms that bet with their specifications. That was a rather amusing exchange, even if it was fraught with cultural touchpoints that missed my beak. Having made his selections, Victor turns to us and indicates to take down the soundproof field. He converses with the clerk regarding his selections, the quantity of ammunition he wishes to take for them, and the time frame of the waiting period, and repairs to the plasma blades. At the end of this, the clerk tallies the total we owe, and flicks it to my holopad. It's pricey, but you really can't put a price on a properly secured ship. I pay it. Victor heartily shakes hands with the clerk, followed by the clerk very gently shaking my wing claw. We smile and wave as Victor leaves, me back atop his left shoulder. Later. Oof, I really did not expect gun shopping to take all morning, proclaims Victor. Well, don't relax too much. We still have one more stop before we're off duty for the day, and I imagine that this one will be somewhat more mentally taxing. I chide gently. He laughs. You got it, Cap. I'll stay wide for what's coming. We keep walking for a while before our destination comes into view. We draw up to the building that looks like it was designed by a committee of utilitarian garden warders, fighting with artistic Terrans. Zanzibar Mapaya's Office of Deaf Warder Relations Consulate, I state, looking up. It takes me a moment to realise that we ceased moving. I look down at Victor, his face a mask of apprehension. For all his flippancy, he's clearly still worried about what might be to come. I rest my wing claws in his head, causing him to look up to me. I smile. Let's go in, shall we? Victor? He smiles back and nods, before stepping forward.